The techniques in this educational video were compiled from the collaboration of experienced Australian Greyhound veterinarians Drs. Peter Yore, John Newell, John Katakasi and David Larratt. The aim is to assist veterinarians in performing a clearance to race certificate for greyhounds returning from injury. These examination guidelines have also been requested as an educational tool by the Australian Veterinary Association's special interest group, the Australian Greyhound Working and Sporting Dogs Veterinarians. The video is also for greyhound trainer awareness, so they may identify problems earlier. It is not a replacement for local veterinary consultation, but may assist trainers to seek immediate veterinary attention and radiographic investigation when they detect an issue to potentially avoid more serious injury. The right hind leg of the racing greyhound is the site of over 90% of hock fractures and also the common location of the most debilitating muscle injury that may impact racing careers, the gracilis, also known as the back muscle. Why is the right hock so vulnerable to injury? The simple reason is the workload and the twisting that is involved when the right hind leg drives the greyhound around a corner. Hocks are normally turned out at 25 degrees when running in a straight line so that the back legs do not contact the front legs. On the anti-clockwise turn, the left hock is already turned in by 25 degrees. However, the harder working right hind has to turn its hock in by at least 25 degrees, and this turning in is predominantly done by the gracilis muscle. This explains why this muscle also becomes overloaded and tears. The dramatic internal twisting of the right hind creates overload and potential damage to not only the bones of the hock, but all the supporting muscles, tendons and joints in the right hind leg. The focus of physical examination is therefore locating the areas of overload involving the entire leg and lower back. Now, these changes manifest as stiffness or loss of range of motion with muscles, pain on bone surfaces, and laxity in the supportive soft tissue, which is usually at the front of joints, especially in the hock and wrist. First, we'll start with identifying the major landmarks of the hock. The top white mark is on the obvious bump at the base of the fibula, which marks the tibiotarsal joint. The red dot at the front of the hock marks the central tarsal bone, which is the most commonly fractured bone in the hock. The descending weight through the leg goes through the talus and into the central tarsal bone, which explains its overload. The lower white dot marks the bottom of the hock, as the large bump is the top of metatarsal 5. Range of motion testing is started with the back by lifting up and gently pushing down for bounce. Also, the base of the tail can be held to check for side flexion. Assess hip mobility, straight back stretch for cranial hip muscles, internal rotation of stifle for psoas muscle, and lifting of stifle for abductor muscle. Hock flexion or compression test is undertaken with left hand on top of stifle and right hand cupping the foot. Push your hands together to assess the range of motion and presence of bouncy elastic endpoint. Stiffness here may indicate problems in the hock structure, calf muscles or the Achilles tendon. Always compare to the left side. Assess the range of motion in the gracilis muscle by hand on the hock stretch forward and outwards. Left hand can palpate muscle at the same time. The connection between the gracilis and the hock is the actual calf muscles. To assess their mobility, left hand on stifle, right hand on hock pushing forward and check for the elastic endpoint, and palpate up through the muscles between the gastrocs. The superficial digital flexor is usually very tight. Contraction here overloads the plantar ligaments. Most early fractures in the hock start at the front. So we palpate down the front with the leg loaded on the ground. Use a bouncy pressure to go down each tarsal line into the metatarsals, left and right. Pain found on bone pressure of the front of the hock may indicate the presence of a bone crack or be secondary to excess contraction in the plantar ligaments or calf muscles. Radiography is useful to differentiate the cause. Check for laxity or looseness in the compressive sleeve of the hock by finding the thickened tissue that supports the longitudinal tendon, the long digital extensor. Compare one side to the other. This one is loose by about 1 centimetre on the right hand side. Strapping will assist stabilising this laxity and support the underlying bones. The red dot on the back of the hock marks the plantar ligaments, and a test for their tension or contraction in those is called the metatarsal torsion test. To perform this test, one hand holding above the hock and the other one rotating below on the metatarsals. Okay, this little greyhound, just showing some landmarks for testing the tarsal torsion test, or the slide in the dorsal soft tissue. There's the bottom of the fibula. There's the top of the metatarsal 5. So this is all the tarsal area in here, the front of the tarsus. There's a long tendon that comes down there under that vein, long digital extensor tendon. There's a thickening here of tissue called the retinaculum, right over the calcaneus talus area. I put my thumb on there, and I do the fingers at the back. I'll do the same on the opposite side. I'm trying the left side, and I push against it, and it's tight. There's no laxity there. As I put the pressure against this side, it slides. It's only about a centimetre slide compared to here. I get in there, it slides. He's a little bit sensitive. He's been pulling up a little bit tight over T3. His calf muscle is nice and relaxed now. So we're going to strap this to reverse this slide, which is always internal, because the dog's legs are 25 degrees when they run in a straight line. When they corner, he has to twist in, which actually causes stretching through all the tendons, the joint capsular sleeve, and the intracapsular ligaments. So we're going to strap it back the other way to try to stop this deteriorating. Okay, this is Zara. Now she's, from a hock point of view, she's showing pain at the front of the hock. I'll show you. When I go to flex the hock, she doesn't have elasticity at the end point. She's not particularly painful, but she's a bit stiff. When I palpate down the front of her hock, on the outside, over T3, she's a little bit sensitive over T3. Central tarsal, she's okay, but definitely over T3, she's a bit sore. When I rotate, do a metatarsal torsion, she's a bit resistant there. There's movement though between the plantar ligament area. I come up to the calf muscles and I split between the gastrocnemius, and she's quite tight. When I go to extend that gastroc area, she gets to the 180 degree, and then there's resistance. She doesn't want me to fully stretch. Just walk through from this side. I'll do the other side. When I extend, yep, through there is fine. Yep. When I go to extend this calf area here, she go to 180 degrees, and then there's elasticity. All right. So come back to this side, and I'll show you again here. When I go to extend, she's got pain and there's no elasticity. So I'm going to be inject the trigger points that are in the superficial digital flexor, which is just between the gastroc muscles. I'll inject those, and then I'll come back a couple of minutes later and show you how the hock feels then.